Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second edition of the Shade and
Shade
podcast. It's all about education.
Because our education is fundamental.
Yeah. Yes, everybody knows something or other about education.
Or ought to know.
Or ought to know. Everybody has a viewpoint. I mean, no matter who they are, whether it's for good or for bad. So I think it's a very critical topic and great to be part of this.
Yes. So, and what's the news?
So let's, what's happening in education now? We know schools are starting. Back to school after the long holiday, after the fun and games.
Do we know when Lagos State is starting?
September. First week in September.
First week in September.
Yes, back to school. And it's been a long holiday, hasn't it?
Because some schools usually try and push it to October. You know, there's so many holidays, like Independence Day, this date. Some schools, some states I know.
And some states push it beyond Lagos State.
Yeah.
But Lagos State does count the number of days. And and is always strict about the number of days that children spend in school.
Yeah.
So that's why the term and the session seems longer than the typical session.
Yeah. So we'll be looking at what's happening in the space. One of the things I have noticed, because I'm in the private school sector, so many schools are in trouble financially.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Schools are closing down.
Schools are closing down, and they have a lot of debts they need to service. And I don't know if there's any help coming from anywhere, intervention. I mean, we hear of taxation and everything, but we never hear of active help coming to the sector. I mean, do you know what's going on? What the plans are?
I think government itself has so many problems.
Issues.
Funding its own schools.
Yes, so those ones, leave them alone, yes.
Really had time to really sit and think about private schools. But I think this is a great point. It's clear. It's a great point, and it's clear that we all have to work together for the good of all the children in the community. So I think we'll have to start to shift our thinking, I think, all of us.
We're all in it together. We're on the same side of the fence.
Yeah.
Okay. Other news happening, like I mentioned in our previous program, and I think this time we'll look at it closer, is the keeping children safe in education. In particular, the new regulations that have come in, some of them border on the filtering of the internet access into educational institutions. Before it was just a guidance. Now there's a requirement for institutions that have children and vulnerable adults to actually put in a filter.
Well, that's important, clearly, because and the children are so clever that you really have to keep up.
They're cleverer than us.
Oh, they are. You have to keep up with these filters. You think one filter is strong enough, then you find out that the children have found a way to bypass it. So I think that's very important, that you should be required to put in filters and not just, sort of encouraged to. Yeah.
And then the other thing is child-on-child sexual violence or exploitation or even sexual bullying. That is becoming a big thing. And I know in the last few months there were quite a few cases.
Yeah, a number of cases.
Yes. And in fact, maybe they're more publicized, I don't know why. Or is it that there's more of it now, or what's going on?
I think, of course, because of social media, we hear more. And because these are children, and adults probably wouldn't film themselves and send it out on the public forum.
That's true.
So because there's no sense of,
they don't even know what they're doing is too bad.
No. Yeah. So they just post it and you see it. And of course it riles parents, it upsets them, and they react very strongly to it. And that's why this kind of thing just goes viral very quickly on social media. And once it's gone viral, you really have to take very strong steps.
Well, I just noticed something. We're both wearing pashminas. What's going on? I'm cold.
It's cold in here.
It's cold in Africa. Okay, so we both name Shade. We're both into education. We're both wearing pashminas. We're both wearing glasses. Okay.
So much in common.
It's too much in common. Inquiring minds want to know what we're up to. So today we're going to continue with safeguarding and really drill down into one of the I think, sometimes overlooked sections in Nigeria. Safer recruitment.
Oh, definitely we have to look into safer recruitment, because the teachers determine a lot of what happens in any school. You know, you can't rise above the level of your teachers. And the safer and the more exacting your recruitment methods are, the better the quality of teachers that you'll bring in. So, yes.
So, should we take a little break?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
and then we'll look at not just teachers, but also in churches, Sunday school, or malams, or whoever it is, ilekeu, those who are in charge. How do we check their backgrounds?
Anyone in charge of children.
Children and vulnerable adults.
And
So yeah,
vulnerable
we'll take a
adults,
break.
yeah.
Take
Okay.
a quick sip of water.
Yes,
And
thank
get
you.
back to it.
All right.
Yes, see you soon.
So welcome back. That was nice, a nice break.
A nice break, needed break.
Yeah,
Oh.
We needed that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to say that we are going to have a guest on the show, and he's none other than Mr. Oluyemi Adeosun. He's head of HR at Eternal PLC. Remember, we were talking about recruitment, and so we really need to talk to the experts on recruitment about safe recruitment of staff. So welcome to the program, Mr. Oluyemi Adeosun. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Shade
Good afternoon.
and
Shade.
Privilege and pleasure to you.
yeah. So you're welcome, Shade.
We talked about, just before we went on break, about safer recruitment. What are the methods as an HR professional? Do you really think that the systems, one, are in place, and two, they're being implemented on checking backgrounds, checking the register of offenders? How reliable, if they do check, how reliable is the information we get on there?
Thank you so much. You know, you are talking about a very sensitive topic, because all of us have children or have access to children within our family, and the process of onboarding our caregivers matter a lot. If you permit me to even expand, not just the teachers, even our nannies and caregivers
Yes.
at home. You may be surprised at how some of us just get the most accessible, almost convenient person,
Or the
just to
cheapest.
fill in. Notwithstanding the fact that some of these caregivers, their tenure can be short, and they can exit our homes with abrupt notice, and you are under pressure as a parent, especially if you are a working class father or mother, and then you are not able to wait out the process of a thorough application, you know, background checks, double checking, and you just want to make do and come back to work. Having said that, this topic is very fundamental. We really need to check. For example, for schools, we need to check that the teachers are actually teachers. What do I mean? You know, sometimes if you are not careful, people enter teaching because there's nothing else to do. You need people who, one, have gone through proper education. It could be NCE, could be studying education in school, or certain special education courses and programs like Montessori.
So do you check their
and
certificates and authenticate those certificates as an HR professional?
Yes, so that's another area now, because it's one thing for an individual to claim to have certificates. It's now another thing for the organization or institution to do background check. Yes, background check will cost some money. It will also cost some time and some legwork. The good thing about it is some of these background check, as an organization or institution, you can do it yourself. Of course, if it costs you time, legwork, or on the alternative, you can outsource it to background check firms. There are many firms around who specialize of course, you pay them for that. And within reasonable turnaround time, some 1 week, some 1 month, depending on what you are trying to check, they will get back to you in good time. But it's worth every penny invested and every legwork invested, because it's better to be safe than sorry, because you might end up becoming an accomplice to a crime if you did not do the due diligence in sourcing for the teachers and the appropriate caregivers.
What about the police reports? How,
Yeah.
I mean, because I've heard of people getting police reports that is just, you pay a certain amount and it's stamped. What can you do? How do you check?
Okay, so with my own experience with the police reports, it does a few things for the organization. One, the process of getting police report, to the best of my knowledge, you need to go and capture your biodata. So it's not one of the things that you can just pay for and get a letter. If you paid, the best you can do is to maybe fast track the process, but you still have to go and do your biodata. What that does, it means that you're already on the Nigerian police force systems, all your fingerprints, your eyeballs, everything has been checked. So anybody who goes through that process of entering the data formally of the Nigerian police system, you know that if you now go ahead to commit crime, it is easier to apprehend you. Even if you will run out of the country, Interpol will pick you up more easily because your data is already with the state. So most of the time, people who are criminally minded will not want to go and get the police report.
True.
Most of the time, because it will be slightly more convenient to apprehend you if things go sour.
I'm also concerned about, in recruitment of teachers. Is there a register that one can call on? Is there a register?
I mean, there's a teachers
offenders
registration
and so
council
on?
in Nigeria.
Yeah,
but do
there
they
is, yeah.
actually keep track of
Yeah.
sanctions, complaints, even criminality on the part of teachers?
Because I see that teachers are very mobile.
They just go
They
from,
just
they'll
leave you
start
and
somewhere
move.
today, go somewhere tomorrow, and nobody is checking. I know we do, but
Most schools don't.
Most
And even
schools
when you
don't.
call, they don't tell you the truth.
well, the thing is, sometimes you ask for a reference, and this person probably hasn't done anything, and they still won't give you the
No,
reference.
they won't.
Although that means you can't employ that person because you have to have the record. But the poor man or woman who has not done anything and they're not, you keep calling the HR, they won't give you the records. What happens to them?
I think you can give us a few pointers about what schools should do, please.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't really
Yeah, you can't force them, I guess.
must give you a reference. Really, there's no legislation that insists. But what most organizations do out of goodwill and reciprocity is that they provide reference based on facts and information. Of course, the reality too is that some organizations will try to be as neutral, as diplomatic as possible. This concept in this part of the world that you don't want to be the reason why somebody else's life is spoiled. Now, also the other issue that you mentioned, which is the teacher in a register, depending on the situation. So there are certain instances where when something happens in a particular school, it might be reported to the police. We now complete the process of ensuring that we document, for example, with the Ministry of Education, with the Teachers Council, and relevant stakeholders. So if you don't do that and complete the cycle, there may not be information
that's true.
with all the relevant stakeholders, so to speak. So if there's need to blacklist or place on a watch list to accomplish that, this may also not be connected sometimes with the way we operate in the society. Somebody will say,
I don't want
the
to
stigma.
ruin their
I
career.
just want to safeguard my daughter or my son.
Yeah,
I don't want to be going to the ministry or Ministry of Social Welfare to document or write a report, a petition. Sometimes just say, let me just take my child out of this school, or just sack the teacher
Exactly.
and life continues as usual. So it's a slightly complicated process, but again, the process of recruitment must be thorough. It's not something you must rush. And there are schools that do that process. It's not easy to become a teacher in certain schools, for example, in Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay. there is, what about, we're talking about schools.
Yes.
What about the churches and mosques that we mentioned?
Oh, yes. So what
Because
do we
I don't
do
see
about
them putting adverts out to recruit people. How do we know that the people that we leave our children with at Sunday school or at Quranic lessons haven't got issues?
Okay, so based on my own experience as a parent, what I realized is, this faith-based organization run principally on volunteerism.
Yes.
Now, they look for volunteers to join different departments or functional areas to provide support for the smooth administration of the faith-based organization. One of the things I've noticed, however, for example, let me speak about some churches I know. They will not allow a single person, either male or female, to be a teacher or a custodian. You must be married first and foremost. Not because single people
As if
may
that
not
makes a
have
difference.
capacity to nurture children, but they are trying to safeguard that your stakes will be higher as a current parent yourself. Your sensitivity and awareness will be higher. Two, maybe to join ushering, maybe you need to have been a member for 3 months and you can be considered. To be in the children's church, you probably need to have been a member for 2 years and longer. Then there are certain biodata the faith-based organization will obtain from you. They may relax on some apartment, but maybe somebody must know you and your family, where you live, where you work, what kind of things you do. They try to do some background check. It may now not be as thorough as, for example, requesting for a police report. No faith-based organization will do that, except there is a strong suspicion. But they have their own internal mechanism. So they rely on members that have been around for a long while. And, it's not easy to pretend over 5 years, 10 years, and the like. So that's the kind of social structure that faith-based organization put in place. Then they also make sure that you don't have maybe one teacher, you'll be like 3, so that there's overlap of functions and people can provide oversight concurrently and people can watch out. And they do documentation. You see some churches, for example, they give parents tags when they are bringing their children in. They do awareness, sensitization, even letting the children know what kind of things to report, inappropriate behavior, either from an adult or fellow children, letting them know that if a stranger calls you, don't respond. Those kind of things. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This looks to me like best practices available locally, but I'm not sure it's
standardized,
right, ubiquitous,
yes.
and if it's standardized, like you said. But I'm very glad that you've mentioned it, and I hope many people are listening and are willing to institute these measures in their school, in their churches and mosques, because we know that a lot of abuse happens there. So because people are very open and vulnerable when they're in such institutions. They believe, they trust the system. Trust level is high. And so it's very easy to get at
But even abroad, where they actually have legislation mandating even volunteers in this scouts, churches, Sunday school, whatever, you still have serious cases of abuse. Then you talk about Nigeria, where it's more or less voluntary. As I say, only God is saving us. Now only God do. It's God that is doing it. Then, what about the house help that you mentioned? How many people actually go through, and what avenues are there to check the background of the house helps and drivers? Because sometimes you find drivers carrying children alone to school. I have had to caution parents who send their children with just the driver. Girls, it could be even boys, and I said, is this all right? They said, oh, he's been with us for 20 years. And, So, what do you think about the recruitment of domestic staff?
So that's even more personal and has more inherent risk. So I'll speak to a couple of things. First and foremost, let me start from maybe the not so obvious ones. These people, nannies, caregivers, domestic support staff, we need to take care of them as reasonable as possible. Don't forget that when these people work at close proximity with you, they are able to decipher your own standard of living. Even though they may not be doing the kind of work you do to earn a living, a part of them aspires to. So make sure that they're able to take care of their own fundamental needs. So don't just pay minimum wage, pay a living
True.
wage, and show interest in their personal affairs as long as they are with you. That way, you don't condition them to begin to harbor malicious intent towards your words or you. Having said that, no matter how well you treat some people, they will still behave funny. And that is why, no matter who recommended a domestic staff to you, do your documentations right. So I know people today in Lagos, for example, even though they are the one who individually source a domestic help, they will now run that domestic help or driver through a service provider. And part of the things the service provider will do is this police documentation. Some even do some basic tests like all these hepatitis, B, C,
I know, I do.
HIV tests, some of these,
We
just to
do.
be sure, because they may be handling food and eating related things and the likes. The other thing here is also control. Now, for example, I know people who insist that if a driver is going to pick their child or ward in school, they must go with the nanny. So you can see where you are using two people to do like a mecha checker to cross-check. Hopefully, the driver and the nanny, you source them independently and their relationship is not too cordial to enable them
Divide and
to
rule.
have something bad.
Not too
Hopefully.
cordial.
So
How do you
we really
prevent
need to do
that?
that. Then what parents also do, if it's supposed to be a 1 hour journey, for example, maybe every 15 minutes, the dad or the mom will be calling to just check. Sometimes say, give the phone to Junior. Now, if the child is also old enough to have access to a phone after school hours, you also speak, are you okay, anything? And you build confidence with your children that if you notice any strange behavior, strange can be negative and it can be positive. For example, the driver is overtly nice to you or something, report. So you must continue to sensitize the children to trust you,
I
to
have
be able
seen a
to share
driver kiss
concerns
a
with
child
you,
on the
and
cheek.
don't brush off
This was in front
anything they may bring to you. Don't try and trivialize it. Okay, so those will be my response to this last question you just asked. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've certainly taken us through some very important insights. And I hope, like I said, that people are listening and people are willing to do a lot within their own capacities. Because I find that we are rather careless with many of these things, whether it's recruitment of teachers, whether it's recruitment of domestic staff. You just take someone, you don't know the person, don't know anything about that person, and you leave the person in your house and go
with
to
your
work.
child.
And then the person is in charge of your child. So I think it's time. I think society is actually becoming more sensitive to that kind of thing. Thank you very much. I don't know. I don't have any other
Well, there was
questions.
something I wanted to ask. I mean, because we've been talking about safeguarding, we talked about children. There are two things. One, a lot of people are putting CCTV.
Okay, CCTV.
How are you? Is that really legal? Are you invading the privacy of these people? And how useful is that? And then also, it's not just children now we need to worry about. A lot of us have older parents in their 90s. I've heard of people abusing.
Talk about me.
Me too.
Me too. My
We've
mom
heard
is
of
92.
people abusing these elderly
Oh, yeah.
people,
Oh, yeah.
stealing from them, pushing them,
Yeah.
mocking them, mismanaging their medication deliberately. What can we do? Because it's becoming an issue.
And it's heartbreaking.
It's and you feel guilty, and you're paralyzed, and you still need the stuff.
You need this person, yeah.
In fact, it's a very fundamental issue you have raised.
Should we all put
especially
CCTV and just accept that we should live with
So
CCTV?
the thing about CCTV is that when you place CCTV in your house, it is legal, it is okay. However, you need to be careful. What do I mean? You cannot put CCTV in certain places. For example, in the toilet or bedroom. Or say if the nanny
In my own
is a
house,
live-in
my own
nanny.
bathroom, because if the nanny is giving my child a bath, I want to
Yes.
see.
So if it is in your own bathroom, it's okay, but there must be a bathroom and maybe a living room for the
No, I
nanny to
won't put
stay
in the
that doesn't have
bathroom.
CCTV.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be an invasion
Yeah.
of the nanny's privacy. But in the
Yeah.
other areas, in this context that we will designate as work areas, you can have CCTV there. And it's also best practice to let anybody to know that, look, this place is under CC surveillance. That is why you will see maybe an eatery or a church or something, they would notify you upfront that this is a CCTV covered area, so that the person doesn't think I'm alone wearing pants and then their video starts circulating somewhere. Of course, people will say when they know there's CCTV, they may now become more ingenious, that don't let them know so that you will catch them. But for protection and data privacy, you should let them know. But by all means, it's CCTV. But don't forget that there will also always be blind spots for CCTV. So my next question will be, and this question now is rhetorical. You don't have to answer. It's just a rhetorical question. Would you now put CCTV in the car? Because by the time the driver needs to carry your ward or your mama for a medical checkup between the house and the hospital, there will always be windows for crime to be committed or perpetuated. So hopefully, if the elderly one too is not completely incapacitated, even if it is 10, 15 minutes, touch base with mama or papa every day, just to find out any difference, what do they think. And if they express reservation about the caregiver, like change this caregiver, even if you don't see a reason to respect that decision because you've not caught them committing a crime, please change. Because sometimes they may not be able to tell you everything. So once you see some reservation from daddy or mommy, grandpa, please honor it and change in the safety and interest of us people.
I think you're right. Whether it might be unfair, but just to be on the safe side.
I think there was an old man, his daughter told me that anytime the caregiver moved towards him, he would tremble and shake, and he was really scared of her. So it was clear she was abusing him.
Yeah.
And he couldn't talk because at a certain age, some old people are not even verbal anymore.
Yeah.
But you would just see his eyes and his whole body trembling. So again, I think it's a good idea to just be very, very observant and keep watch.
Do we have time for one more question? Like
one
minute?
More question. Just 1 minute.
I just want to ask, what about checking the social media handles of your potential employees? Because I do that. I'm sorry. I run everybody through Google now.
Okay, so that's also a good question. It will work for some categories, it won't work for some. So for example, for teachers, that may work. But many of the people who do the kind of jobs like driving, nanny, they may be under the radar. They may be semi-illiterate.
You'll be surprised.
And even if
many
of them are on Facebook.
Some of them, yes, they may be on Facebook, but may not be able to give you enough insights because of the volume of data. So you just see some random, but there's nothing stopping you in checking. Okay, there's nothing, but you may not really be able to get much. So for those caliber of people, an additional way to check, if you know the neighborhood where they live or where they grew up or where they've lived for a substantial time, you can go there or send a trusted proxy there. So for example, maybe you go to a barber shop or somewhere and say, this guy, don't make it intentional like you have come to investigate. You make it look like a conversation that came out of a casual conversation. Oh, what do you think about these guys?
That's true.
Those people will be able to tell you things. So that is the social media. You know,
that's our own social media. It's true. It
doesn't have to be physical reality. The social media is supposed to be so. So we get facts from the street. They can say, so and so is a drug addict or used to supply drugs or so and so. You will get information that may not be online.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, this has been really educational. I don't know about you, but I learned so much.
Lot.
Even though I thought I had all the answers on safer recruitment, because I'm quite anal about checking.
Yeah, I'm quite excited that there's so much that one can do.
One can do, just putting the effort.
We just reduce it to one or two things, but from this discussion, it's clear that we can go beyond what we normally do. I would still do social media.
I would do, or someone did, they put Okada driver to follow somebody around for a week. He said, Ashebi is 30,000. I paid the Okada by 30,000 to follow the man around.
You can't be too careful nowadays. But what worries me, and this is probably my last word on this, is why is this so much? Why? It breaks my heart that you really have to spend so much time, effort, money, and legwork, like you said, for this kind of thing. And it happens.
It's all the time.
One isn't exaggerating it. It's there's quite a lot of it.
Well, thank you so much. I think our guest has been incredible.
Yes,
Mr. Adeosun, thank you so much. And Shadi, say bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. This was another safeguarding episode, and I hope you thoroughly enjoyed it like we did and learned a lot.
Well, so stay tuned. Next week, we've got another topic.
Oh, next week is
and
going
if
to be
you
even
think
more
there's anything that we need to talk about, how about dropping us a line? We're on social media. We'll put you all the we'll give you all the handles after the program. Just look at the credits, and then we'll take it from there. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Next time, no more pashminas, eh?
No
more pashminas.
No.
Yes.
But we'll see. We'll see
what happens. Maybe change the pashminas.
You know, we twins sometimes.
Yes, you know.
They're coming from Ibadan, Lagos.
Yes, and they wear the same. My sister from another mother. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for having us.
Bye. Bye-bye.